Chaos at Jimmy Kimmel's studio. Oh, it's getting crazy, boys. Apparently, there's fear among the staff that Jimmy Kimmel might actually apologize, despite the fact reporting is he won't apologize. Staff are threatening to boycott and walk out of the show mid-show if he does apologize to Trump supporters for falsely claiming that Charlie Kirk's assassin was MAGA. At the same time, Nexstar is joining Sinclair and saying they will not air his show. Oh boy, I guess we got a rock in a hard place. What's Jimmy Kimmel to do? If he comes out and says, guys, I didn't mean it that way, and for that, I am sorry, he loses his staff. If he doesn't apologize, then the MAGA people are going to be as offended as they've been. Now, I think, if you've seen my assessment this morning, for those that haven't, the only reason that ABC is bringing back Jimmy Kimmel is because there was a terror attack on an ABC station in California, and several other local affiliates faced threats of terror attacks. And this is insane. This guy went to an ABC station, shot it up, and then threatened Cash, Dan, and Pam over at the DOJ saying they're next. And this is not fly-by-night weirdo news. This is NBC reporting. This is Mediaite. This happened. Now, Jimmy Kimmel apparently is not going to apologize. We'll see what happens. Advertisers and affiliates are still angry with the show. Nothing has changed. So for what reason is ABC bringing the show back? The only cited reason that makes sense in the official reporting from the Wall Street Journal was when they said they feared for the safety of their staff. Considering the affiliates and the advertisers haven't changed their stance on this and they're still boycotting the show, I have to imagine the only relevant fact that remains is the terror threats and the terror attack on ABC has them terrified. So where do we go from here, man? Now, it gets crazier from here. Keith Olbermann threatened to kill Scott Jennings, a CNN conservative commentator. He apologized for this. But this is where we are as a country, and holy crap, things are getting crazy. In fact, The Atlantic, believe it or not, a mainstream liberal publication, just wrote an article saying left-wing terror is on the rise. And I can't believe I'm saying this because we did want to lead the show with this news, but we pushed it back in the wake of more information coming about Jimmy Kimmel because of the threat it poses in the immediate with terrorism and, of course, with heated tensions in this country. But the Trump would-be assassin, Ryan Routh, has been found guilty on all counts, and after being found guilty, attempted to commit suicide in the courtroom. Then there was a security breach at the UN with Donald Trump, where apparently the UN shut down the escalator right before he went up it, intentionally creating a very serious security issue, which has everybody up in arms. It's called freezing the target. Trump was left standing still and exposed, and many conservatives are furious while men on the left say stopping the escalator was a joke. Considering where we are in this country, I will just say, oh my God. We're going to talk about that and more. But before we do, my friends, we got some great sponsors. We got Cove Pure. You may have seen this. Utah and Florida recently banned fluoride in their drinking water. Now ask yourself, why are they doing a massive U-turn on a chemical that's been pumped into our water for 80 years? Maybe it's because they finally realized it's authoritarian. You need the freedom to choose pure water. That's why you should check out Cove Pure, a countertop water purifier certified to remove up to 99.9% of impurities. That includes fluoride. Yes, but also all the other garbage, PFAs, fertilizer runoff, pharmaceuticals, you name it. Wow, that's actually insanely impressive. The taste is a game changer too, guys. This is what water's supposed to taste like: pure, clean, no aftertaste. You'll want more, and it's so easy. No drilling, no plumbers. Just fill it, plug it in. The best part is you can choose any temperature, hot or cold, with one tap. If you like fluoride, fine. Use toothpaste, use mouthwash, but don't wait for the government to sort out pure water. Do it yourself. Head over to covepure.com/Tim, and for a limited time, get $200 off. That's COVEPURE.com/Tim. And I will add to this too. We're on well water, so we don't have fluoride in our water, and we use glass bottles for our refillables. To be fair, though, we do offer up plastic for those that don't really care. So I take this very seriously. This is legit. And, Luke Rudkowski watching right now is just banging his head on the table being like, yes! Super awesome, Cove Pure. Check it out. We also got PDS Debt. My friends, check out pdsdebt.com/Tim. The system ain't broken. It is rigged. And if you're buried in debt, that's exactly how they want it. Big banks profit when you're desperate. Creditors win when you lose, but you don't have to play their game. PDS Debt helps you take back control. They've helped hundreds of thousands break free from credit cards, loans, high-interest traps. It's your money. It's your future. Time to fight for both. PDS Debt goes beyond the numbers to understand your unique financial situation and craft a personalized plan designed just for you. There's no minimum credit score required. They're here to help you save more, pay off your debt faster, and start putting money back where it belongs, in your pocket. BDS Debt is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, boasts thousands of 5-star reviews on Google, and holds a 5-star rating on Trustpilot. Why? Because PDS has helped hundreds of thousands of people get out of debt. You're 30 seconds away from being debt-free. Get your free assessment and find the best option for you right now at pds.com/Tim. That is pds.com/Tim. And my friends, don't forget to also smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more, we've got Stephen Edginton.
Thank you so much, Tim, for having me.
Who are you? What do you do?
So I work for GB News, which is a British TV network. I live in Washington, D.C. I've been out here for almost 2 years. And I make documentaries for the channel and do long-form interviews with people like Steve Bannon, Victor Davis Hanson, and so on, from a different perspective than most of the British TV networks, which are generally on the left. And GB News is taking a slightly different stance. So, yeah, I'm focusing on American politics and American news.
All right, on. Thanks for hanging out. Should be fun. We got Tate hanging out.
What's up, guys? Tate Brown here, holding it down. Friend of the Brits, friend of British Patriots. So happy to be here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's get into it.
Here's the story from Blast, I guess, republished by Y Entertainment. Chaos ensues backstage at Jimmy Kimmel Live hours ahead of filming. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that Next Star stations are joining Sinclair. They will not air Jimmy Kimmel. They are preempting the show, which basically means that instead of just taking on what ABC is sending to them, they are going to put something else in its place. And they're saying it's going to be news coverage. But this is where it gets crazy. Yahoo reporting Jimmy Kimmel's return to late-night TV has allegedly sparked major backstage drama, with producers and writers reportedly panicking just hours before filming. The comedian is set to return to Jimmy Kimmel Live after a week-long suspension over his controversial comments about Charlie Kirk's assassination. But insiders say no one knows what he'll say in his comeback monologue, causing chaos, and some staffers are threatening to walk out if he apologizes. That's crazy. Now, the reporting we got before was that he will not apologize, but we'll see. According to the Daily Mail, the chaos erupted backstage on Tuesday as staff expressed frustration over being left out of the decision-making process. Executive producers have reportedly clamped down, ordering team members not to discuss Kimmel's monologue, which is expected to draw millions of viewers. The secrecy has only heightened tensions, with one insider warning that an apology could be viewed as a betrayal. No one knows what Jimmy is going to say, but there are rumblings that if he apologizes, there will be a walkout. If he grovels or falls on his sword, that's actually a betrayal to all of us. We were all in agreement about the things he said. If he walks them back, it would invalidate everything. Kimmel's controversial remarks, in which he accused the MAGA gang of spinning the suspect's political ties, drew sharp criticism and triggered a warning from FCC Chairman Brendan Carr. This we all know. Now, let me just stress this for the sake of this segment. I know I mentioned this in the intro, but initial reporting, Wall Street Journal and The Hollywood Reporter. Jimmy Kimmel will not apologize, would not apologize. Wall Street Journal said advertisers and affiliates were upset over the comments. They were insensitive. Jimmy Kimmel's statement insinuated the assassin was a Trump supporter when all evidence suggests he was actually left aligned. The executives, Bob Iger and Dana Walden, went to Jimmy Kimmel and said, hey, actually, you're fine. Initial reporting from the Daily Beast said they were actually on his side until Jimmy Kimmel said he was going to criticize MAGA for twisting his words. The executives feared that would make things worse. And considering the threats from advertisers and affiliates, as well as threats to their safety from threats they'd received, they thought it would be a bad idea to let Jimmy Kimmel go back on the air. Now, nowhere did they mention the FCC pressured them or anything like that. Now, Nexstar and Sinclair, the affiliates that threatened to preempt the show, are still doing it. Advertisers have updated us in no meaningful way, so it looks like nothing has changed except for one thing. From Mediaite, anti-Trump ABC shooter targeted Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, DOJ says, quote, they're next. Indeed, the anti-Trump gunman who fired several shots at a California ABC station left a handwritten note that he was targeting Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and Dan Bongino. This, combined with the reporting that several ABC affiliates received threats of terror attacks, forcing Sinclair to pull their Charlie Kirk memorial, suggests Disney's only motivation in bringing back Jimmy Kimmel was the threat of death that their staff received from the left. And now here we are with them saying, do not apologize or we walk. I have no idea how this country heals. Now, I will say, obviously, when you go outside for the most part, you're not running into people who are hyper-partisan or hyper-polarized. But that was always the case with urban versus rural. In the conservative areas, they're conservative. In liberal areas, they're liberal, with some controversy happening where they would interact. I have no idea how, if this is where we're currently at, we come down from this, especially considering we are not even a full 2 weeks from the assassination of Charlie Kirk, as well as the terror attack on ABC happening just afterwards. Now we've got reports that Nick Shirley was attacked by Antifa in New York. Cam Higbee was attacked in, was it Tennessee?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
This is just, it's a holy crap moment. I don't know where we go next.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Well, I mean, I think that the reason why we're seeing the kind of the clash of cultures is because of the internet, right? Like you mentioned, there was a time when if you didn't actually live near people, you could maybe hear opinions you weren't super into on TV or whatever, but you could turn the TV off and, you know, they weren't constantly in your pocket, constantly being broadcast to you. And I feel like people that are honestly mentally unstable, or at least borderline, that kind of constant reminding that there are people out there that think very differently to you, and these people are going to be living their lives, and they're going to be trying to have their values expressed in their lives, really messes people up if they're mentally unhinged. And I think that's kind of where the left is at.
But this kind of political violence goes back a long way in American history. You know, you've got Lee Harvey Oswald, this kid who sort of doesn't know what his views are. He's going to communism and he's going against it, and he's just a crazy radical guy. I know there's lots of conspiracies around JFK's death, but you know, it's not just JFK, but also his brother. And then you've got Malcolm X, and then you've got Martin Luther King Jr. You know, in the 60s, we had a huge amount of radicalization on both sides. And we didn't have the internet then. I think America has always had this almost a tradition of political violence that you kind of goes in ebbs and flows, and seems to be going massively in the wrong direction now. And one thing I've observed since being here and moving to America, we were always told in Europe, you know, in Britain, the crazy MAGA people, they're the radicals. They're the ones who are, completely deranged and violent. And then I came here and I was covering the election campaign last year, and I went to both the Kamala rallies and the Trump rallies. And people don't know who I am. People don't know who GB News is. They don't know what our political affiliation is. The Kamala people were so aggressive, were so like, who are you? You know, treating me like I was some kind of enemy. The Trump people, I have to say, on the whole, I had one incident in New York where some drunk guys, were a bit aggressive, but on the whole were, so welcoming.
They had to be drunk to be aggressive.
Exactly. They were having fun. And they hear the British accent, they're like, you're an enemy. But it's so interesting to see the left's political radicalization. They've had 10 years of being told Trump is Hitler, is a fascist, is a tyrant, is going to destroy democracy. So yeah, of course you've got these mentally ill people who believe it.
You know, my favorite thing is I call this the ship of Theseus delusional state of the left. That is, every 7 years, every cell in your body has been changed, right? So that means every 7 years you're an entirely new person. That means these liberals, with 10 years of being inundated with fake news about Donald Trump and the right, are literally manifest of cells imbued with Trump hatred. It is the core of their very essence.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, because that's the thing. It's like if we could outsource this to the internet, say, okay, well, this is like, if you get off the internet, you unplug, then you won't have to deal with this, polarization. But the thing is, like you were saying, first of all, we have a long history of this. And then also, libs are getting hit at every tier, every form of media. They're getting hit with propaganda, whether it's print, like even just books you can find at Barnes & Noble. You're going to find descriptions of Trump that are just outrageous and ridiculous. So it's like, no, this is just a containment breach where they are so overjoyed to see Charlie Kirk assassinated that they can't contain themselves.
I just want to plead out there to all those liberals who may see this. Please look up Tylenol pregnancy on TikTok. When Donald Trump and RFK Jr. and the US FDA said there is a link found by Mount Sinai, Johns Hopkins, and Harvard, a link between Tylenol, acetaminophen, and autism, videos started to pop up of pregnant women taking Tylenol for literally no reason. In fact, one of the doctors even said, you can take it when you absolutely need to, just consider this. But because Trump said it, they start slamming Tylenol pills. And I think right there, if that is you, something is wrong. Something is very wrong. I know not every liberal is rushing out to do this, but it is insane to me that prominent liberals have come out and said Trump is a fascist blaming women for autism when it's their own sperm. And I'm just like, okay. I get how psychotic that story is, but imagine how that instinctive gut reaction to anything Trump says manifests with stories like the Jimmy Kimmel stuff. A terrorist attacked an ABC station. Can we please stop this?
No, Tim, we can't.
Trump can. Antifa has been declared a terrorist organization, which is a meaningless legal distinction that doesn't have one. We'll see how what the reaction is from all of these major corporations, whether they take that seriously or not. But I believe that Trump is doing a trial balloon, and the Trump admin, and come on, Stephen Miller knows full well, they can file Antifa as a foreign terrorist organization, which is a legal distinction, and then it gets spicy. Because then YouTube is forced by law to ban any and all support for Antifa. They're legally required to. Right now, they're not. And I think Trump is going the domestic terror route with the executive order. It's a light touch to try and massage the culture so that when he does launch the FTO designation, it won't be shocking news.
Do you think, as supporters of the First Amendment, there's any kind of contradiction there where trying to ban Antifa or whatever? So it's obviously the violence is the issue.
Will Chamberlain changed my mind. I had been of the position that I thought was rather harsh, that we should not defend these people. I wouldn't advocate for them to be banned. They're allowed to have their opinions, but I will not defend them when they get censored. I changed my mind. Will Chamberlain changed my mind. He argued, I'm too nice, today on my Culture War interview with him, and that we must actively ban anyone who celebrates the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The reason is a society that venerates assassins is a society opening the door to civil war. And I will elaborate on his point because he's correct. What are we looking at? 10 months since the assassination of, I believe his name was Brian Thompson, right? Mm-hmm. Charlie Kirk is killed. They made saint candles of Luigi Mangione. Mm-hmm. They dance in front of his courtroom saying he's innocent. They say that he's innocent by way of doing the right thing in murdering a CEO of a corporation. Will is correct. And I will add, the people that are celebrating the assassination of Kirk don't really know or care. They're piling on to TikTok trends. Let's put a pressure on that and say, don't do it or you will be removed from these platforms. Like, no criminal charges or anything, but I explain it like this. There is a point at which all leaders, this is just standard moral philosophy, recognize there are extenuating circumstances where we must take action. Abraham Lincoln especially recognized this. We are not dealing with a stable modern society that doesn't have assassinations where something happens and some crazy people come out and cheer for it. Were it the case that there were 100,000 people in various cities that were holding up signs celebrating assassination, I'd be like, oof, I mean, that's getting dangerous, but scale matters. We're dealing with now millions, as well as high-profile prominent politicos and liberal pundits celebrating the assassination or defending it in some way. And if we allow this as a society, then we know what happens next. The person who kills the next conservative in their mind is saying, I don't care what conservatives think of me. Why? I don't hang out with conservatives. They don't pay my bills. They don't hire me for jobs. I hate them. The only thing they care about is whether they get support from the left. And if the left is celebrating and venerating assassins, these people are being told explicitly assassination is okay, and they will not only get away with it, but be rewarded for it.
Yeah.
And it's not just assassinations the left are supporting. If they see a violent crime like the murder of that Ukrainian girl, some of them will just go and support the murderer. Like they set up a GoFundMe page for the murderer. And in other cases where the murderer is black and the victim is white, they'll instinctively support the murderer. Or, it's not just about the political thing. It's like, it's race and,
Have you ever been to Belfast?
No, I haven't actually, no.
I've only been there one time. I am far from an expert on the Troubles. But my tour guide, when I went and traveled there. The peace wall has Palestine on one side, Israel on the other. He showed me a memorial to men who massacred civilians. And it did not matter. I don't remember the exact story, but there was a memorial where apparently like 3 guys during the Troubles went into a civilian shopping area and just started gunning people down. And the people on the other side celebrated it, saying, well, they're all evil, so what does it matter? And that's how insane things get. Let me jump to this story from The Independent. Scott Jennings said he told the FBI about Keith Olbermann's threat as feud between the two grows. I am going to start this segment right now by saying Keith Olbermann must be arrested for this threat he sent to Scott Jennings. I don't tolerate this. I'm not a law enforcement guy, but he must be criminally charged. I am not playing around. Let me show you what he sent to Scott Jennings. I believe it doesn't appear that they actually have it here. I think they have it in this other one. Let's pull up this one. Now, I will mention Keith Olbermann did apologize. I don't care. In this post, you can see Scott Jennings has CC'd FBI Director Cash. Keith Olbermann tweeted to Scott Jennings, a conservative commentator, "You're next, mother effer, but keep mugging to the camera." Now, I'd like to ask you some questions. Next, of course, correct me if I'm wrong, implies a first, right? And that Scott Jennings is not the first. So when he said, "You're next, mother effer," what would Scott Jennings be the second person to have happened to them in this current context? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, Keith Olbermann says it's not what he meant, but it was clearly it would be totally reasonable to assume that he was threatening your life.
Why would it in any way be reasonable to assume it could be literally anything else?
Well, I don't think that it would be, but
it would not be. And Keith Olbermann, realizing that he sent a public death threat to Scott Jennings, deleted it very quickly and then reposted something saying, "Your career is next." Now, hold on there a gosh darn minute. Was there, maybe I'm wrong, was there a conservative who got fired from their job in the past 2 weeks? Any prominent conservative personalities got fired from their job or anything?
Conservative?
Yeah. No. How? So when Keith Olbermann said, "You're next, mother effer," yeah. What's the first thing that happened? I mean, nothing has happened to any conservatives except for Charlie Kirk being murdered. So we get the point. And I'm going to add to it with this. I have already had my security team forward to the FBI exact messages just like this. And it is no judge is going to be so dumb as to not realize what Keith Olbermann just did. Okay, if you Google search "You're next" on X, I'm sorry, I say Google search, but because it's a reflex. If you search on X, "You're next," insert conservative personality, you will find wave after wave of death threats. They are all in the context of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Yep. Now, Keith Olbermann has apologized, saying, "I apologize without reservation," to Scott Jennings. Yesterday wrote and immediately deleted 2 responses to him about Kimmel because they could be misinterpreted as a threat to anything besides his career. I immediately replaced them with one specifying what I actually meant. No, he didn't. And I don't think that matters. I think the issue is the threat was sent. Scott Jennings took it as a threat. Other threats are sent in the exact same way, and we cannot tolerate this. Okay? I'm totally biased. I am taking this very personally because the exact same messages are being sent to me and my team. And we know what it means. And Keith Olbermann is in those exact same circles, seeing those exact same replies. There is no reality where he didn't know. He did it, and then he regretted it, and there must be some...
At the very least,
there must be some criminal charge, criminal action. And all I'm saying is he goes to court, knock on his door, you say, "You're under arrest, okay? We're going to process you." They don't got to cuff him even. It doesn't got to be at 4 a.m, okay? He'll go before a judge. The judge will say, "How do you plead?" He'll say, "I plead guilty," because he got a plea bargain. 20 hours of community service. Don't do it again. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, this is Exhibit A of why a society that permits the celebration of political assassinations just invites its own destruction.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like once murder is normalized as speech, that's the end of a republic. And Keith Olbermann is giving you Exhibit A right away.
We're there, bro.
Right. Yes. I mean, so yeah, like this is just completely corrosive to the social order. This is the same reason like recruiting for terrorism is banned. It's the same reason it's corrosive to the civic order.
Jimmy Kimmel is reportedly not going to apologize. We don't know if he will or not. I think he should. And if he does, I personally would be satisfied. But let me pause. What did Jimmy Kimmel do? He said that MAGA was trying to paint this guy as anything other than one of their own. He is now going to get the biggest audience he's had in years. Mm-hmm. And if he says, "I was wrong about that," the evidence shows that this shooter actually is aligned with leftist values and was doing this because of his hatred for Charlie Kirk and because he said Charlie Kirk was hateful. If he apologizes and explains that to all of those libs, I will be satisfied. However, staff are threatening to walk out and quit their jobs if he does. So we'll see. I think if Jimmy comes out tonight and apologizes, and it's funny because a lot of people are going to watch this show tomorrow morning. If he comes out and apologizes, and I will be watching it, I will, and he apologizes, I have hope.
It's crazy how much influence these staffers can have in media organizations, because it's not just, I think, ABC, but also big media companies in America where staffers try and bully the editors, of the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and so on. They actually tried to, Jeff Bezos tried to put in a British editor into, I think, the Washington Post last year, who works for The Telegraph. He's the deputy editor of The Telegraph, which is a British conservative newspaper. Brilliant journalist, one of the best journalists I've ever worked with, incredibly talented. He would have made an incredible editor. But the staff revolted against him and this decision and against Jeff Bezos. And they started publishing hit pieces on him. And he actually pulled out of that the consideration because I think he felt that, he was going to go into this sort of lion's den, this kind of pit of these young woke graduates who work at the Washington Post and are trying to attack him. So they do this all the time. This is like a left-wing thing to do, is just, we're just going to walk out, and the bosses could just say, well, you're fired then. Well, if you don't want to work for us because of some political decision, you should go. I'm sure we can find lots of other producers and things like that who want to work on Jimmy Kimmel's show. It depends on whether they have the kind of courage and the balls to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it is remarkable how much influence. I agree with you. The fact that, someone that's in their early 20s, emotionally unstable, is going to have that kind of power to be able to get someone like Kimmel or even staffers on the Hill, right? Like, so on Capitol Hill, staffers, they have massive influence over what the Congress people say, because a lot of times the Congress people aren't really read into or read up on whatever the issues at hand are. So the staffers say, this is what you should think, or this is what we want to think, or this is what we should say. And they do really have an incredible amount of influence.
And this tradition actually goes back to communism. In communist China, you have the Cultural Revolution, where you have the students actually attacking the teachers.
Yep.
In the Soviet Union, they actually idolized these kids who were reporting on their parents. There was one kid who reported on his parents for whatever, wrong speak or some political crime against Stalin. And they built a statue of him in Moscow, of this kid, to say, you should be, attacking your elders. And you say they're emotionally unstable. This is the other thing that's crazy in America and in Britain as well, really. The amount of young, and I have to say this does seem to impact women more than men, who are emotionally unstable, who are depressed or on anti-anxiety drugs, think they have ADHD, ADD, they're taking all of this medication. And if you mix in these emotionally unstable, anxious young people in particular, with this radicalization online and through, their friends and their social life and the news and everything, then you get this situation where there is a rise of political violence and there is a rise of radicalization. And then you get these kids walking out on Jimmy Kimmel thinking they control the world because these sort of boomers are giving into them.
Well, yeah, and it's worked. I mean, you remember during the BLM riots, the editorial page editor at the New York Times, and he just ran Tom Cotton's op-ed, which was a very sensible op-ed. And then dozens of New York Times reporters and staffers just tweeted this is putting Black lives in danger. So they've already created the precedent that the staffers can bully these editors. I think the same thing happened at the Atlantic. They hired Jeffrey Goldberg hired a conservative, conservative writer.
Milquetoast, of course.
Yeah, very milquetoast. And the entire staff revolted and they got the guy fired right away. So it's they already have the precedent that we can just cry and throw a fit and we'll get our way.
There's a real simple solution here, and it's that these media outlets need to terminate all of those staff members. Clean house.
The problem is the way that these journalism departments work in these universities is they just produce activists. It's just an activism mill. So until the people that are hiring these staffers kind of realize that, hey, you might have to seek some more unorthodox hiring practices, you're just going to keep ending up with these activist writing rooms. It's just the reality of the situation.
Well, they're all scared of turning off the spigot. These companies make money. Look what CNN did. CNN's they have Scott Jennings because they destroyed their credibility and their ratings by chasing after the anti-Trump narrative to maximize views. I mean, even right now, I'll say this: I don't want to get into the full thing. We may actually do a culture war debate on the Charlie Kirk conspiracy theories. But there are a bunch of channels that I've seen with very small followings that are getting millions of views by pushing all of these crazy conspiracy theories about the Charlie Kirk assassination. That will haunt you because you are excising yourself from what I would describe as the majority market. I'm being very nice in how I describe this. CNN effectively did this when they said we're only going to target Trump, and so did Jimmy Kimmel, and that's why his ratings are bad. Down 43% a month. You know, we were talking about this on the Piers Morgan thing when I think it was Fallon had on Greg Gutfeld. Mm-hmm. Apparently the ratings were through the roof.
Oh, yeah. It was like one of his biggest shows in years.
Because regular people were like, I can watch this.
Yep.
But when they decide to be activists, pandering to activists, nobody watches. Perhaps this is Jimmy Kimmel's desperate bid. He's going to come back out tonight and say, I think we've been way too divisive. I think we've been way too hard on our brothers and sisters. And I think I learned something from this past week. We have to be friends. I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, maybe I can try and win a market back. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying it's the highest probabilities of what's going to happen. I actually think if someone asked me to put money down, I'd put money down that he's going to criticize MAGA. He's going to offer up a non-apology apology where he says, I could have been more clear. And the joke was ill-timed.
Yeah.
But MAGA twisted my words. Something like that, where it's going to be like a lukewarm C- thing that doesn't really apologize.
Well, and even if he does come out and like grovel or whatever, Gavin Newsom's the guest, so they're going to bring him on the panel.
Is that confirmed?
I believe so. Yeah.
I couldn't find that, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, at least that's the discussion on Twitter, and that's what I've seen from a few places. So it's like if that's the case.
No, I'm pretty sure it's Sarah McLachlan.
Oh, Sarah McLachlan. I think she's the musical guest tonight.
Oh, is she?
In the arms of an angel.
I saw a lot of people saying. No, it is confirmed, not correct. Newsom will not be on Kimmel.
Oh, okay.
He will be on Colbert.
Oh, fantastic. All right, that's must-watch
Same
television.
show, right? I mean,
Same show. Functionally the same
Functionally
thing.
the same, yeah. So if you need just like your brain rotted, then maybe that's a good option.
Well, Kimmel will definitely talk about cancel culture and, the hypocrisy of the right. I mean, this has been a line from Obama and all these liberals over the last week, is suddenly they're concerned about freedom of speech when the last sort of 10, 15 years has been the complete reverse situation.
They'll talk about that and they won't mention what YouTube's statement was today.
I just want to stress, I mean, if that is correct, and Jimmy Kimmel opens his show by listing out people who've lost their jobs for criticizing Charlie Kirk, and then he criticizes Charlie Kirk, I am going to pull the shutters down on every building here and double up our security detail. I'm kidding, by the way. But if Jimmy Kimmel actually goes on his show and says, MAGA activists have been getting people fired from their jobs, from nurses and teachers and even me, because we don't agree. And that is wrong. And he totally frames it that way. Man, I don't know if anything could make the right riot, but maybe that would do it.
I could see Kimmel taking that direction because the thing about the left is it's such an inherent, like having left-wing positions is so inherently like gay that they need to seize every chance they can get to
Literally, though.
No, seriously, I'm not being facetious. It's so every time they have the chance to have like a tough guy position where they can say like, we're standing for free speech. Oh! They never let that opportunity go by. And I guarantee you Kimmel's going to try and do the tough guy thing.
Of course. Right.
Guarantee it.
Let's jump to this shocking, I repeat, shocking article from The Atlantic. I can't believe I'm about to read these words from The Atlantic. Left-wing terrorism is on the rise. For the first time in more than 30 years, attacks by the far left outnumber those by the far right. I think I almost had a heart attack. And I have a strong heart.
It's incredible.
Well, we've all known this. Why are they finally admitting it?
Do you think that it's just gotten to the point where it's not it's undeniable now, where their credibility is in jeopardy because they refuse to admit it?
I think, you know what I think? I think that Trump won the popular vote. I think that I'm a fan of a bunch of, I don't want to call anybody out and drag them, but there are many people across various markets, we'll call it, that are default lib, not really political. And I have seen them over the years make, ish lib normie statements about politics. but they're not really ever doing it. Like they're not actively engaged in debate. They're not attacking people. They'll just post something where they're like, hey, we shouldn't do things like this, Black Lives Matter, whatever.
Platitudes?
Yeah, like the normie-ish lib, not really paying attention. These people that I follow, they have now met me. I have met them. They are posting in defense of Charlie Kirk. They are sending me texts saying, like, right on, brother. And that gives me hope. And I think now at The Atlantic, they recognized, when you've got a professional athlete who is no longer defending the activists on the left and is now actively defending Donald Trump, there is a culture shift happening, and we want to be on the right side of history. So The Atlantic writes this. No matter how hard ideologues try to exclusively blame their political foes for acts of political violence, the truth is that violent extremists today emerge from across the political spectrum. We have studied this problem and believe that our data can help illuminate an issue too often defined by partisan finger-pointing. They're correct. As part of a study to be published this week by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, we compiled and analyzed a data set of 750 attacks and plots in the United States from 1994 to July 4th of 2025. Our research focuses only on incidents of terrorism, which we define as attacks or plots by a non-state actor attempting to achieve a political end and exert a psychological influence on a broad population. Among other details, the dataset includes the types of weapons used, the intended targets, the number of fatalities, and the ideology of the perpetrators. Oh, I guess we have to. I got to log in. We found that left-wing terrorism has increased since President Donald Trump's rise to political prominence in 2016. Indeed, 2025 marks the first time in more than 30 years that left-wing attacks outnumber those from the far right. Despite its recent increase, however, left-wing terrorism is not nearly as common today as it was in the 60s or early 70s. So it sounds like what their argument is there was a brief period with some right-wing terror, and I'm assuming a lot of that has to do with abortion clinics and things like that in the 90s.
You also had these kind of sovereign citizen people who were going and attacking kind of federal troops and FBI and things like that in the 90s. You had the Oklahoma bombing and, was it the Waco thing as well?
Yeah, but Waco wasn't attacking anyone. They were attacked.
Yeah.
That was the government.
Second of all, like the way that they calculate a lot of the right-wing attacks is they'll go and say there's some white nationalist that's involved in the drug trade, and he kills a guy that was involved with the drug trade that owed him money. They'll say that that's a right-wing attack or whatever, even though it's not political, it's over drugs. And the same type of thing when it deals with white nationalists in jail, because prison gangs are very common, and a lot of white dudes get into gangs when they're in prison. And if a white guy kills another white guy because of whatever prison beef they have, they'll say that that is also a political attack, even though there's no politics involved. It just so happens that these people were involved in white nationalism somehow.
I've got yeah, right. And from that point, let's debunk. I can't believe I'm saying this about an article that I actually like the headline on, but I got to debunk this. They say, a major shift in politics, however, can cause the losing side to become more combative. Just as Trump's election led to a rise in left-wing violence, President Barack Obama's election corresponded with a surge in violence from the right. From 2009 to 2016, right-wing extremists were responsible for 106 terror attacks and plots, nearly double the 58 right-wing incidents that occurred in the 8 years prior. These tend to be more lethal than left-wing attacks, which generally target specific individuals, such as the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last year, or the assassination attempt on Trump in the West Palm Beach golf course. Right-wing extremists, by contrast, are more likely to target whole groups. In the past decade, in the United States, 36 left-wing attacks have killed 13 people, whereas 152 right-wing attacks have killed 112. Full stop. You see what they're doing? They're doing the same thing everyone else does. I don't care about your nebulous right wing. White supremacists and I have almost nothing in common politically. Now, maybe they might argue for tax policy or something, but that's not what we're talking about. Charlie Kirk kicked white supremacists out of his events. So when you find some white supremacist say a right-wing extremist did this, that has nothing to do with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. However, when Luigi Mangione, accused of, killed Brian Thompson, the entirety of the left either defended or supported it outright. They sold merch in his honor. They dance for him. When Charlie Kirk was killed, default normie liberals posted messages saying, I get it's wrong, but Charlie was a racist, bigot, evil, and worse. Staunch liberals in the far left celebrated his death. We are not the same. Do not give me this. You cannot lump in white supremacists with run-of-the-mill mega conservatives who are probably, I got to be honest, mostly out of shape and aren't going to be able to engage in any kind of physical activity as it is. And I'm saying that somewhat facetiously as a joke, but the left should agree because that's the joke they make.
It's like lumping in Islamist terrorists with the left, which they don't do. And that's the other thing this article isn't talking about and is ignoring. And Islamist terrorism is political terrorism. You know, undoubtedly. Is it left-wing? Is it right-wing? It's neither, really. And to say that, you know, a white supremacist is right-wing, again, that's kind of controversial, right? So you can't just say... You're right. There are obviously some far-right people, though, who do attacks. Like, we can't deny that as well.
Sure.
You know, that does happen. That exists. But yeah, as you say, like the KKK, the white supremacists, and this was a huge thing back in the 50s and the 60s as well, where you had, on one side, you had the black nationalists, who are causing all sorts of problems, killing people, terrorism, and so on. And also you had the KKK. And you had J. Edgar Hoover going after both groups vigorously. And like we said earlier, that's what Trump and the DOJ and should be doing now on the left. I mean, they need to stop this problem, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the fact that they're admitting it, though, I do feel like that this is part of the cultural shift that's going on. The fact that the left has lost so much ground, and they are in a position where the normies, you're normally, you know, politically unconnected or politically inactive people, are seeing these TikToks they're making celebrating murder. They're noticing that Luigi Mangione, like, if you're not politically active and you hear about a guy that killed a CEO, if you're not mad at billionaires, that you're just like, that's a horrible thing. They just shot that guy in the back for no reason. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make any sense that he was killed because he's a billionaire, or not even a billionaire, because he's a millionaire. Because again, they talk about billionaires, right? But that guy, his net worth, I looked it up before, his net worth was somewhere around 44 million, which is a lot of money. But there is a world of difference between 1 billion and 40 million. You know what I mean?
Do you know what's crazy as well is the people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death and the people celebrating Luigi Mangione. This is such a stark contrast to what happens in Britain when an Islamist goes and blows up a load of children at a Manchester Arena concert, or, you know, someone goes and stabs a load of kids who are at a Taylor Swift dance recital. The government has this unit, I think you've had Connor Tomlinson on, he's probably talked about this, where the government tries to manage the response, the public's response to a terrorist attack. And they say, don't look back in anger, this is all peace and love and kumbaya, let's come together, don't be angry about this. Whereas actually, yes, we should be angry about this. They're literally murdering our children. We had a Conservative member of Parliament who was killed a couple of years ago, called Sir David Amos, by an Islamist. Again, the response is like, this violence is on both sides, don't look back in anger, everyone come together. Whereas in America, this is even worse, is they're celebrating the murderers. They're not saying, don't look back in anger, let's come together, you know, let's be non-partisan, let's just like tone everything down. No. They're actually putting out the videos celebrating, they're gleeful that their enemies are being killed. This is a complete, you know, I couldn't believe that this is happening.
You know, I'm currently doing a bit of live research here while you're talking about, I'm doing research on the amount of attacks, politically motivated attacks. And the first bit of data I have so far is it's currently calculating and putting up numbers. Do you know how, I asked it, how many violent attacks have there been in the last 5 years by conservative Trump supporters? And do you know what ChatGPT told me?
How many?
There have been 14 attacks by the far right. So I said, and I'm going to avoid swearing in case there are kids in, but I said, you stupid mother. I did not say far right. Do you know what it responded with?
What?
0. There have been 0 attacks by Trump supporters on any group. It's here's the best part. I then said, how many? Let me get the exact question I asked. How many attacks were motivated by any ideologies that were aligned with the U.S. liberal or left, U.S. liberal faction or left? And guess what it said? You got to guess.
I don't know, 10?
0.
0?
So Michael Reinl shooting and killing Aaron Danielson, yelling, we got a Trump supporter, and then bang, bang, and killing him doesn't count. We have, I think, a handful of transgender mass shooters who shot up Catholic schools. Those don't count. And so I asked our good friend ChatGPT, why don't those count? And it said, because that's not what the left means. So what the game is, when I asked ChatGPT how many attacks were carried out by conservative Trump supporters, it responded with the far right, which I did not ask it. And when I said left aligned, it said none, because left means economic policy.
And they also blame mental illness for a lot of the left-wing attacks. They say, oh, well, this person was just mentally ill, or we don't know the motive because they had different political views, and they try and sort of muddy the waters so that they don't include them in their faction. And this again goes back to the transgender thing. Obviously, it looks like Robinson had a transgender boyfriend, and it does seem to be a huge rise in transgender violence in recent years.
Yeah,
and again, this comes from the mental health stuff. I mean, these people are obviously very, very, very sick people.
Yeah, well, I mean, and they're taking it out on enemy number one, which is Christians. And Charlie Kirk, represented Christian values. That was his MO. And then you saw it in Minneapolis with the Catholic school. You saw it in Nashville with that was the Presbyterian school. So it's like, yeah, not only do we have this problem, there's a group that's mentally disturbed that's clearly has a propensity to violence. They also have an axe to grind with Christians, the largest religion in the United States and the foundation of the country.
Yeah, I mean, they feel like anyone that doesn't affirm their delusion is somehow physically assaulting them or is somehow a threat to them.
You guys are going to love this. So it was calculating, and it calculated for a few minutes before saying 0. There are 0 leftist terror attacks in the United States in the last 5 years, or politically motivated attacks. So I said, so when a trans person kills Christians, it's not the left. Correct. That is not classified as left-wing. I said, okay, we'll classify it as such and reassess. And it said 1. If you classify the Nashville shooting as left-aligned, there was 1 attack. And I responded, and Minnesota, 2. If you include both Nashville and Minnesota, then there were 2. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It said if you include both the Nashville shooting and Michael Reinl's killing, that would be 2. And I said, that would be 3. And he goes, right. If you include Nashville, Michael Reinl, and the Minnesota shooting, that would be 3. And then I said, and the burning of St. John's Church, and it goes 4. Including the burning of St. John's Church during the 2020 riots, that would be 4. You see what we're up against? These machines, the system that they built is intentionally trying to lie to me. Mm-hmm. Even when I tell it to use these parameters, it will not. And when I asked how many conservative Trump supporters committed these crimes, it said 14 far-right extremists, which I did not ask.
I'm just curious as well about Charlie Kirk, the reaction the left is having, whether they're going too far. Because, I mean, obviously they are going too far, but whether it's going to have a backlash for them. I came from London last week. I was there visiting for a week, and I spoke to some sort of normie friends of mine, and I was like, and it really impacted them, the Charlie Kirk assassination, more than I thought it would. One of my friends said he listened to the Charlie Kirk show every day. This guy had an international reach. Yeah. And then again, I'm like speaking with my normie friends in DC, the American people. Again, this is like having a huge impact emotionally, psychologically on just normal conservative people who are watching the left's reaction and celebrating his death. And it's almost like they're saying, we want you dead. Like, was it Sam Hyde did that video? Yeah. Like, we would be happy if you were dead. We would laugh if you were dead. Well, with your children.
I don't think that that's really in question. If they're going to look at someone like Charlie and they're going to say, I'm happy that he was murdered, then there's no question that they would look at any other conservative. As soon as they found out, they had conservative values, well, good.
Right.
It would be that simple. They were a Trump voter? Good. The world's better off without him. I'm glad.
Yeah, the only thing differentiating Kirk from his followers, which was, a huge following base, was that he was the one with the platform. Yep. But the beliefs and the values are the exact same. They overlap. That's why they were drawn to him, and that's why they would, celebrate just as quickly over your death as they would.
I think that Charlie Kirk's murder really does drive home the point that Trump has been making, which, they don't just hate me. They hate you. I'm just in the way. Mm-hmm. Like, that is a legitimate statement. And I think that you can kind of see it now because of the way that they've celebrated over Charlie Kirk. Again, someone who's not a politician. He was out there talking to people. Of course, he was trying to persuade people of his opinions, right? He was trying to persuade people that he was right. But the idea that just because he was out there trying to persuade people in a very congenial fashion that he deserved to die is absurd.
Yeah, well, and it gets at like how deep this rot is, because even with this Atlantic piece, you see the headline, you skim the first few paragraphs, you're like, oh, okay, so this is maybe the liberal kind of elite signaling to the base, like, hey guys, we do have a radicalism problem, maybe we need to reel this in. And then you read down more, and then we see they're fudging the numbers, they're playing games. So it's like, even with the so-called elite kind of centrist signals that they're trying to send out, there's still this implicit bias against conservatives and right-wingers. And it's like, we're never going to get out of this mess until that can be completely punished at every level, no matter how coy or discreet you're trying to be. That cannot be tolerated.
When was the bake your cake, the bake the cake bigot
that would have been
court finding was like 2013, something like that, or
I think it was before that.
But that was kind of like when it was, at least to me, when it was clear that the left was really looking to pick a fight with Christians.
Yeah,
it wasn't just oh, gay marriage is okay now, or it's legal now, so we're going to go ahead and be happy with our victory. It was like, no, now we have to get them back.
Right.
And the whole LGBT lobby really decided they wanted to pick a fight with Christians.
Yeah.
Just for being Christian.
Yeah, it was
Okay. So let me tell you where we're currently at on this one. I know I'm thinking of this, but I said it's actually pretty funny because I said I kept adding more to this assessment, and I was like, the shooting of Charlie Kirk. I was like, okay, 5, and I'm like, the shooting of the ABC in Sacramento. I was like, yes, okay, that would be 6, and then I wrote, understanding what I'm asking, what other stories were there? And he goes, none. So I said, okay, add any high-profile crimes where the individual was on the left, shared views that some liberals and leftists might share, or attacked Christians or conservatives. It then gave me 9. I then asked it to include the George Floyd riots. It said 10. And I said, no, list the known individual instances that occurred during the George Floyd riots, and the number skyrockets to a massive list that it can't calculate. Because with the George Floyd riots being in almost every city, even small towns, the list of known crimes committed in the name of leftist ideology becomes insurmountable.
Bringing up George Floyd is a great point as well, because when one of their heroes died, and George Floyd is such an odd hero to have, but anyway, they rioted. And the same thing after Martin Luther King Jr. was shot. There was riots all across the country. Compare that to how the MAGA wing have reacted to Charlie Kirk's assassination. They had this huge memorial vigil, completely, peaceful. And his wife said, I forgive the killer. I mean, there's
13,600.
Wow.
So I'm sorry for interrupting you. Continue.
No, I was just saying, look, the right is clearly far more peaceful and less radicalized than the left is. I mean, just look at the reactions between, like I said, George Floyd, Martin Luther King, all these people who were assassinated or killed that the left idealizes, and then Charlie Kirk. And we're meant to believe that it's the MAGA lot, it's the far right who are the most radical, violent ones. And the other point is, the left always talk about safety. Their safety. You're making me feel unsafe.
Yeah.
Your words are making me feel unsafe. That's why I'm walking out of this Jimmy Kimmel thing, because you're making me feel unsafe. No. You're making us feel unsafe because you're murdering us. You're murdering our people. And the right never says that. We don't complain about these things. I mean, we are in the last week because they've just murdered Charlie Kirk. But we don't talk about safety ever. And it's the hypocrisy, it's the projection, it's the kind of cry bullying that the left have done for the last 20 years. Banging on about safety when it's their people on the whole, as we've seen since Trump really entered the arena, that have been killing and targeting people through Antifa violence and so on. And it's interesting that this Atlantic article also mentions at the beginning that it was since Trump came in that this left-wing violence has come on the rise. And I wonder when Trump leaves the presidency, whether the left will tone it down.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Well, because
there is no way. Even if they got someone that was like an establishment, which I don't think there's a future where someone like Mitt Romney wins the Republican nomination again. I think those days are gone. Republicans want someone that is going to fight. They're not interested in polite politics anymore. They want their They want to win. They want the things that they care about to be protected and fought for. They don't want to just be like, they don't want Mitt Romney. They don't want the old GOP back in power.
Yeah.
So I don't see that happening. And whoever comes that will push like Donald Trump does, whether it be J.D. Vance or someone else, I think whoever we get next is actually going to be further right than Donald Trump, because Donald Trump in his heart isn't particularly far right. He used to be a Democrat. He was a Democrat right up until right before he started running. He's not not particularly far right. I think whoever comes after Donald Trump is going to be fairly far right.
But Trump himself does seem to drive people crazy and totally nuts. Like I said, I went to this Kamala rally in Atlanta last year and interviewing these kind of old white liberal women. And they were just crazy about the guy. Not in the way that they, maybe about JD or about Rubio or something. I feel like Trump has a particular hold on them in their brain, this kind of Trump derangement syndrome. Maybe that can transfer onto whoever the next person is. And, the left always, we forget as well, they called Mitt Romney all sorts of similar names that they called Trump when he was the candidate. And then suddenly he's now like, the moderate conservative, let's give back to Romney, or let's go back to Reagan. At the time they were calling Reagan similar names. And I wonder again whether when Trump leaves, maybe they'll start idolizing Trump, like, oh, we miss Trump, we've got JD, he's the new fascist. Let's go back to like the.
You guys want to see the graph I just made?
Sure, why not?
Go figure.
Perfect.
So I'll tell you what the violent incidents are. This is real. I asked ChatGPT, and this is not even complete. This is just off the cuff. I said arrests made for violent crimes during riots that followed leftist issues, left-aligned issues. Obviously, there's the 9 high-profile ones, but this is right-aligned as arrests of Trump-supporting conservatives for violent crimes in the past 5 years, that crimes committed for a political purpose versus the left. There you go. 13,658 to 0. Of course, to be fair, that's almost entirely the George Floyd riots.
Mm-hmm. Could you argue that the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband was from a MAGA guy? I can't remember his politics.
It was a wackaloon guy.
And another thing that people they want to talk about the Pelosi thing, which drives me insane. And I just got into it with a guy today on the internet. They're like, oh, they were celebrating Pelosi. And it's like, no, not a single conservative was celebrating the attack on Pelosi. They were mocking the circumstances surrounding it. They were making jokes about the fact that he was in his underwear. They were making jokes about the fact that the assailant was in his underwear as well. They were making jokes about it. Nobody said, thank goodness Paul Pelosi got hit in the head with a hammer. He was spouting things that I totally disagree with, and I'm really grateful that guy went and hit his head. And not a single person said that, and it drives me nuts when they bring up Paul Pelosi, because not only did no conservative say that, Paul Pelosi didn't die. He wasn't murdered. He was attacked. These things are so different, and the left love to bring up Paul Pelosi. Oh, Paul Pelosi, blah, blah, blah. It is such a distraction and is such BS lie.
Let's jump to this story from NBC News. Ryan Routh found guilty in Trump golf course assassination attempt. Following this, he attempted to stab himself in the neck with a pen. They subdued him, and it is strange to me that they just have these weird courtroom drawings, which is from a time when cameras didn't exist. And I don't know why they don't allow cameras in these trials now, especially when it's a would-be assassin of Donald Trump. But once again, we are dealing with far left extremism, and this is... These people are closer to mainstream Democrats than anyone wants to admit. The assassin of Charlie Kirk, the alleged assassin, he wasn't a guy who was found with a Karl Marx. They didn't find him with Das Kapital in his attaché case. He's a guy who had mainstream Democrat views that Charlie Kirk opposed, and the evidence suggests that's why he killed Charlie Kirk. When they go through these graphs and say the far right does more crime, there is no manifesto in the Republican Party supporting far right extremists. It doesn't exist. And so the left has to make it up because they are psychotic and insane. And once again, more proof.
This guy is a Ukraine extremist. I think he spent 10 months in Ukraine. And obviously, this is the other narrative the left have been pushing about Trump. Yes, he's fascist. Yes, he's tyrannical. Yes, he's authoritarian. But he's also Putin's puppet. He's also Putin's man. And Putin is the great enemy. Putin is the great Satan that we have to, attack. And he's America's number one enemy. So if he's controlling Trump, then obviously Trump is also that enemy. And it's interesting because Trump today actually tweeted about Ukraine. And I'm sure Ryan Ruth would probably support Trump's tweet, supporting Zelensky, going against Putin, saying that Ukraine is able to win this war. And this idea, again, that Trump is somehow controlled by Putin was another complete false narrative pushed for over a decade, the kind of Russiagate stuff from 2015 and 2016 and so on, that again drives people totally crazy, totally radical, totally extremist. And the left, again, they're talking about this kind of words equals violence. Well, look at what this narrative that the left pushed that was completely false has led to. Someone trying to kill the president, and obviously today trying to kill himself after the guilty verdict.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Ryan Root thing, I don't understand, what the point of. I don't know that he was particularly suicidal. I haven't heard a lot about it beyond, at least recently. But I don't know the idea that he was actually trying to kill himself. I'm not even sure that I really buy it. Obviously, You
think he's putting on a show?
Yeah. That's just my kind of gut instinct, and I'm
apparently
totally
he
open to
wasn't
being
even
wrong.
defending himself. He had asked questions like, would you want to put on a rock festival with me?
Oh, yeah, he didn't have a lawyer, did he?
No.
No.
And he didn't ask questions about the case. He was apparently asking gag questions, and they were just staring at him like he was nuts. And his principal argument was that he did prep the entire assassination and want to kill Trump, but decided not to do it.
This could be just an attention seeker. I mean, maybe that's why he attacked himself. But, this is all, he sees himself on the world stage. He knows people are watching,
I think the point was that he had failed in what his plan was, and so he's trying to make it seem like he's a loon because he doesn't want... I think the guy's actually rather smart, knows what he's doing, considering the sophisticated plan he had to try and kill Trump. The point is, if he seems lucid when he does this, then it is left ideology is a threat. If he acts crazy, liberals will go, that guy, he was trying to put on a rock festival. He wasn't even actually defending himself. He was clearly insane. He's just a mental health patient.
I wonder how much Ukraine actually came into it with him, because it seems the left they switch out their causes. Suddenly it's trans, then it's Ukraine, then it's BLM. Maybe this is just someone who's, again, hates Donald Trump and is using Ukraine as an excuse or some kind of, some theme of his left-wing radicalism. It seems they can just switch out any of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think Ukraine is kind of a telltale of radicalized MSNBC Americans. It's what I said on the show yesterday. And this guy's just a textbook version of that. It's just a guy that his views are just a conglomeration of what Rachel Maddow said the previous evening. And it just culminates in this bizarre Ukraine glazing. And it doesn't take much. This guy just has to lose a little bit of things just to feel a little bit of instability in his life. And he'll try and go kill the president.
Trump is now glazing Ukraine.
It's true. It's very
He's
true.
saying, you know what, we can win this one and we need to go in. He's also, did he was talking about going back to Afghanistan too?
Yeah, he said he'd be open. He just
maybe the bullet grazing his ear really,
he just
put the fear of God in him.
Usually Trump will say the last thing that someone said to him before he goes in a public sphere. That happens quite often, because he also was had a super base take at the UN today where he was basically just lecturing Europe on having open borders.
They were talking with the Taliban about actually getting Bagram back. So it's more than just Trump, spouting off. And then as for Ukraine, I imagine that has a lot, or the incursions by Russia into NATO airspace has a lot to do with it.
That's how it started.
Oh, yeah.
That's how it started. Is he had the gaggle going on at the side of the General Assembly, and a reporter asked, "Would you shoot down any jets over NATO airspace?" And he said, "Yeah, we should." And that's obviously sends a big warning shot over to Russia. So then he puts a message out on social media doubling down.
Was there a violation of airspace after he said that?
No, but it's only been a few hours.
This is before. So Russia, the drones violated Polish airspace, jets violated airspace over the Baltic and Estonian airspace.
Right.
And now Poland's saying they're going to shoot down any Russian aircraft that enters their airspace.
Look,
Trump said he approves that.
Well, yeah. What else? Why wouldn't they?
Yeah,
That's a warning. Don't do it, Russia.
The idea that Russia, the U.S., really, what should happen is the U.S. should put F-22s in Poland and they should scramble them if Polish airspace is violated, and they should intercept them.
No. They should do. Those lasers they have? They do. I'm not kidding. They have these gigantic infrared lasers that can lock onto an aircraft and superheat it, causing it to malfunction and crash.
Well, I'm thinking before we get into actual combat with them, if you scramble F-22s and just say, okay, we're going to escort you out of here, because that's generally what's happened in the past. Like, because Russia has done that in the past over Alaska. That's why there's F-22s stationed in Alaska. So if Russia violates our airspace, they scramble F-22s and they escort them out.
We rotate F-22s through Eastern Europe like all the time. We have huge bases in Lithuania.
So that's
this is an Israeli ship. The Helios system. 60 kilowatt directed energy weapon.
And I mean, that's all cool and stuff, but I think that it would be kind of sick if they're going to take them out. It would be sick if F-22 shot them down.
Well, don't you think the Poles should look after their own airspace? I mean, this is what a lot of the MAGA people have been saying for years, is that Europe needs to pay for its own defense. And they shouldn't be relying on these American aircraft to do that. Poland is actually spending 5% of its GDP on its military. It's like one of the only countries in Europe doing that. And they're taking it really, really seriously. And there are other European countries who are starting to invest a bit more in their defense. And that's been one of Trump's foreign policy goals for decades, or over a decade. Yeah. So, I think, and that's what he said today about Ukraine and, winning the war is, we'll supply the weapons to NATO. NATO can do whatever they like with them. Mm-hmm. And we think the Europeans should be paying more for their own defense and more for the war in Ukraine, because it's on their border, obviously, right? Yeah. And Trump being in the UN today, I don't know if you've mentioned this already, but the escalator thing, where they turn off the...
We'll get to that.
Okay, we'll get on to that. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I did see few people speculating that this is actually Trump. There's two things happening here. Is one, he's trying to maintain this position of strength over Russia, right? Like they still are a global adversary. So he can't just say, okay, that's totally fine if you want to scramble aircraft over Eastern Europe. So he has to negotiate from a position of strength here. And then B, like you're hitting on it, a few people were speculating this, is he's also trying to reward Poland for really pulling their weight in NATO, because you got to make an example out of these countries that are just hanging on, and they'll give the 1-2%. I think Spain Germany. Is 2%. It's like, what are we doing here? So yeah, that could be, but the first one is absolutely what's happening. This is how it's been. Like, are you new around here? This is how Trump negotiates. He goes big, he goes bold, he's bombastic, he's chauvinistic. That's how he operates. So it's like, don't panic, let him cook a little bit. We have to we can't not negotiate from a position of strength. This is foreign policy 101. So.
Yeah, I think that it makes perfect sense for the U.S. to kind of turn up the heat on Russia at this point.
Well, here we go.
I mean, it's true. Like I'm not a hawk, but at the end of the day, I've been saying, I don't think that Russia's going to actually make a move on Poland if they were to take Ukraine. And if Putin is signaling that that's not the case, that he actually might, which I don't know what else violating NATO airspace is intended to do.
It's because they want
Trump to see what he would actually do.
They want to track the weapons that NATO is sending into Ukraine.
Yeah.
And so there's no reality when Russia's getting sanctioned and getting battered down that they're not going to be like, we need to cut off the flow of weapons. Well, it's not going to stop because NATO's supplying them. We need to see where they're coming from. If Russia gets access to intelligence in NATO countries of where the weapons are flowing, they'll know where they arrive in Ukraine. And I think that's what Russia's motivation is in sending in the drones. It's surveillance. And NATO is like, nah, them's not the rules. You do not do that. And I think Putin thought he could get away with a couple of them, and now he backs off.
Putin is just trying to provoke, though. I mean, Russia has been doing this for many years, trying to violate Western airspace. I think they did this in Britain a couple of years ago, where they're flying in their aircraft nearby or sending in submarines in the North Sea. The Russians are just testing the waters. They want to see how far they can get. And this is what Putin was doing before he actually launched the war in Ukraine. He was sort of slowly seeing what the Western response would be and sort of testing our strengths, testing our weaknesses, and then going in where he saw the weakness. He actually calculated Ukraine completely wrong, by the way. I mean, he thought that he would be able to take over the country in a few days, remove the political leadership.
That's not true. That was a political statement, I think, made by Boris Johnson.
I don't like Boris Johnson for a million different reasons. I disagree with him actually on almost everything. On this, I think he's right. From the Western intelligence, Putin obviously would not send in this huge column of tanks and armored troops and people who were so easily attacked by the Ukrainians, then withdraw from northern Ukraine in a humiliating fashion.
Yeah, he would.
You really think so? You really
Yeah,
think
because
that's 4D
he wanted
chess?
because he wanted.
It's so
no,
humiliating.
It's not
for him.
4D chess. It's he attacks from the north and from the east so that he can secure a land bridge into Crimea, where they have the Black Sea Fleet and access to the Black Sea, which allows them to transport oil to North Africa and through the Suez to get towards India and other countries. That's the control that he wanted, and he got it. So if you look at how this started and where we ended up, every move that Russia made allowed them to secure the land bridge into Crimea.
I think that's definitely one of his geopolitical goals. But I think overall, at the beginning of the war, he was told by his generals and the people around him that this would be a country. Ukraine is basically pro-Russia, and the people will support you when they go and attack.
This is too much comic book villainy for me, bro. I was when I was in Ukraine in 2013 and 14, the almost entirety of Kiev was pro-EU. It was the eastern regions that were more Russian, but Kiev was very, very pro-EU. That's what the Euromaidan protest was.
Sure.
So the idea that Putin did not know that and was like, but my advisors said they would support me, we'd be greeted as liberators, is silly.
Dictators, this is what happens with dictators. Stalin, Napoleon,
George W. Bush.
after decades in power, they're surrounded by yes men. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to... We don't know. Look, no one knows really what happened.
Well,
I think it's perfectly reasonable to say that Putin is surrounded by people giving him false intelligence, because going into Ukraine in that bizarre fashion, as I said, getting attacked on all sides from these Ukrainian and Western drones.
But again, you said
all these
bizarre.
people dying. You don't think that's bizarre?
No, he won the land bridge. The whole fight has been around securing Crimea because that's where the Sevastopol fleet, the Black Sea Fleet for Russia is. And this is their only warm water port. Now, some have argued that they could rebuild in, like, I don't know, near Georgia or whatever. They have other access to the Black Sea. And it's like, sure, tell Russia to forego their multi-billion-dollar port and all of their intelligence and, like, just abandon this base for Western powers to come and take it. They're going to say absolutely not. So if you're looking at this totally blank slate outside, what would you think? I think obviously there's Western biases to be like, Putin's dumb. But that sounds to me like when people go, Trump is dumb. Trump's not stupid. But Trump has bankruptcies. Yeah, he's 500 plus companies and 5 bankruptcies. And bankruptcies don't mean failure. It means a restructuring to keep the business in place. The idea that Vladimir Putin has been successful in running his autocratic system for decades while people are lying to him is silly.
I don't think he's dumb. It's like saying, well, America went into Afghanistan and, you know, they thought they had all these hopes, like George W. Bush, that we're going to create this liberal government in Afghanistan, and the people were against it. The American government were misinformed. They had the wrong intelligence on that. I think applies.
Disagree.
The same principle applies to Putin.
I think the people were misinformed. I think the U.S. government knew exactly what they're doing with their 40-year plan in Afghanistan for nation building, and that's why they offered up contracts to all these military-industrial complex companies, and they expected to be there forever. The idea that the American people were sold will be greeted as liberators is a ridiculous joke. And so this narrative we get out of Ukraine that, wow, Putin's so dumb, why would he do such a thing? Okay, well, I don't care what the opinion is. All I'm going to do is look at the battle assessment. This fight started with Crimea. When the Euromaidan protests were taking over and it resulted in Eastern separatist movements in Ukraine, Russia immediately held a referendum to seize Crimea. Clearly, that mattered to them because they have a naval base there, and it's their access to the Bosphorus where they can ship out all of their gas. Why? Well, because the insult from the West is that Russia is a cold gas station. So what did Vladimir Putin do? When it became clear that Obama and the West were courting Ukraine for NATO and EU admittance, he began to put pressure. He began to build up troops on the western front of Russia in Ukraine, as well as securing Crimea. Trump then gets elected, and what happens? Putin stops. Why? Trump starts blowing the crap up out of ISIS, and it allows the Assad regime in Syria to stabilize to a certain degree. Trump gets out of office, and what happens? We immediately see the Assad regime start crumbling again. All the efforts that Trump made in the Middle East start being walked backwards, is a light way of putting it. Russia then begins amassing troops again. There was this period where Trump was in office from 2016, or I should say 2017 to 2021, where we did not see this escalation of conflict. ISIS was being decimated. Now, where are we? I said this last year. I feared that the Biden administration was creating a circumstance by which Trump would not be able to resolve the Ukraine war with Russia. That was the point. And that Trump was very hopeful. 2 years ago, I said if Trump was in office right now, the war would be over. Then last year, I said, you look at what's going on with the expansion and the attacks, I don't think Trump's going to be able to easily navigate this because the military-industrial complex, the Democrat establishment, wants to create a circumstance by which Russia will not back down. Their losses will be too heavy. All that aside, let's look at the start of the war, what the motivations appeared to be. Outside of any speculation or opinion from the press, Putin clearly wanted Crimea. However, the bridge, the Kherson Bridge, was bombed. That being their only access to Crimea is a severe weakness. So what did they need? They need the land. They need the Donbass stretching down into Crimea, Zaporizhia, Luhansk, Donetsk, and that's what he has. He has it now. Why hasn't Putin tried to go back to the north? Why hasn't he tried to go back and reclaim these areas? He could move in through Belarus and he could stage a pincer strike on Kiev because he doesn't care.
I think it's because he knows that it would be very difficult for him to do that because of the original experience. And I don't think he thought that he was going to be in a long, drawn-out conflict for many years. The reason I think that is, he sends in all these troops at the beginning of the war who are unprepared, under-equipped, under-trained, and that's how the Ukrainians were able to push them out. Putin's economy, Russia's economy is struggling. There's no doubt about that. They're having inflation problems. They're having to cut back on military spending. Perhaps over 1 million Russian young men have been killed in this war. That is a disaster for the Russian demographics. They're already struggling with a fertility crisis. Yeah. Also, look at the rate of the abortions in Russia is huge. It's like Eastern Europe and Russia has very, very high levels of abortion, and they're struggling with an elderly population, the pensions and so on. How is it in Russia's interest to go and kill all these young guys, kill all these young men for their long-term interest? And surely
to secure Sevastopol.
I think that's one aim of Putin. I suspect, we disagree on this clearly, but I think that he did originally want to come in and topple Zelensky.
But I'll put it like this.
Yeah.
I think you have an opinion based on political opinions you've read. My assessment is literally just...
How would you know? Because you don't know. You're not reading Putin's sort of...
No, I'm just looking at the battle map and I'm like, Vladimir Putin has located all of his resources in the land bridge to Crimea. End of story.
But I look at the battle map and see everything else being pushed out at the beginning of the war, and I don't think that was what he wanted or in his interests.
The first territory that Putin seized was Crimea. The next territories were the eastern regions. Then he attacked. It was a flank strike from the north and the east, and he quickly, when that battle happened, and they were repelled from the north, he secured the land bridge to Crimea and has held it for years.
I think he's adapted. I think he's adapted very well.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, I just don't. Well, so are you. I suspect. You can't read Putin's mind, can you?
No, I can't. I can just look at the battle map, and my assessment is quite literally: here's what Putin's done. I ascribe no reason other than the first place he took was Crimea, then the land bridge to Crimea. That's it. End of story. So I keep hearing from all these people about the will of Putin, what he wants to do, and how he was going to secure Kiev in 3 days. And I'm like, well, none of that is based on any real assessment. It's the opinion. First, that was the opinion of Boris Johnson that you can then argue you believe is military intelligence. We don't even know that. It was just a quote he said. Putin thought he was going to go in there in 3 days. Well, I don't know that. All I know is Putin did take Crimea. He did take the Donbass. He did secure the land bridge to Crimea. And that's what his military has secured for the past 2 years. And he's never tried any other to conquer any other parts of the country. By all means,
in the beginning,
in which case we're speculating no matter what we say. So you from that point you can argue maybe he wanted Kiev. I don't know. I can argue this: the strike on Kiev was to divert Ukrainian forces north so that he could secure the land bridge, which is the only place he maintains military presence, and is how he gets access to the Black Sea so he can ship oil to foreign countries to the Bosphorus and the Suez.
Well, isn't it true historically that the Soviet strategy was lightning campaigns? And so that's why the initial offensive in the north was with limited supply. And then now they're kind of bogged down in protracted warfare. So they had to withdraw because this is not Russia, at least at the start of the war, which is not in Russia's element. So they needed to reallocate resources on building that land.
I'll just say one last thought on this because it's a very esoteric geopolitical thing. There is no stated goal for Putin as to the rest of Ukraine. There is a stated goal as it pertains to Crimea. So if we are trying to assess the objectives of Russia right now based on what we know, this argument he's taking Ukraine has no light at the end of the tunnel.
The objective goal of the whole of Ukraine for Putin, and he does say this publicly, is Ukraine needs to demilitarize, it can't join NATO, it can't join the European Union. Those are all geostrategic goals for Putin in this war. And you could argue at the beginning of the war...
Those are the terms he said for negotiating the end of the war.
Yeah.
Not for a military purpose for invading the country.
No, I'm not saying he wants to... Well, I don't think he can invade the whole country even if he wants
to. So the point I'm making is... Yeah. When you look at the start of the war, we're trying to understand the reason why Putin attacked. It is not to demilitarize and stop Ukraine from joining NATO. He secured Crimea first thing in, 2014? Or was this 2016?
2014.
2014. Yeah. And then the eastern regions, and then the land bridge. So you can make the argument about the politics of it outside of that and all of the different opinions everybody's got. And I'm like, sure, fine, maybe. But the only resource drive that we actually see here is the Black Sea. But anyway, let's jump to this story from Mediaite. The White House press secretary demands an investigation into the bad escalator that stymied Trump at the UN. I actually think this was a shot across the bow at Trump. I don't think this was a prank. I think this was a statement that they will kill him. And let's you watch. As Trump is walking to the escalator, they turn it off right when they get on it. And Melania almost falls over. And then Trump and everyone look around. They're frozen for it looks about 7 seconds before Trump then begins to walk up the stairs. This is actually causing a huge outcry for a few reasons. One, it is being viewed, we have this story from the Times of London. To mark Trump's arrival, UN staff members have joked they may turn off the escalators and elevators and simply tell them they ran out of money, so he has to walk up the stairs. This was previously reported that they would do it. The first thing people are saying is they intended to insult Trump in a way that actually could have injured him and his wife. And so there should be criminal charges here. I actually think it's a little bit more than that. This is called freezing the target. Donald Trump is moving through an area and they stop him dead in his tracks, creating an opening for an attack on him. There are a lot of people freaking out that this violated Secret Service protocol because they immediately should have covered him when you get an anomalous action like this. And they didn't.
Just stop funding the UN and kick him out of New York.
Yeah, the Jets should be playing there.
Right. Well, I don't know if there's enough room.
That may be even more insulting to the American people than the UN would be having the Jets play in such fantastic real estate. No, yeah, this is totally...
Leave the Jets in New Jersey.
Definitely, like, dude, the way the UN operates, it's so third world. It's like it's like embarrassing every time Trump has to show up to these places. So yeah, this is not surprising. This is
before
some degree of intentionality here.
Before they built the UN, it was meatpacking warehouses and slaughterhouses.
Yeah.
Look what they did to his teleprompter thing as well. I think that malfunctioned or didn't work. Maybe that was another kind of thing to try and trip him up during his speech. I mean, the UN was set up really by the Americans after the Second World War to kind of dominate global politics. This was really an American enterprise, American liberal enterprise, I should say. This kind of the original neocons and the hawks of the, in the 1950s, 1940s. This was FDR's dream. This was Truman's dream. This was like a Democrat dream to have a kind of united world. This was globalism. This was, a global government under the auspices of American liberal democracy and American rule. And now with Trump in charge, obviously he's kind of a complete contrast to the original aim of the UN. He's a nationalist. He's not a globalist. So suddenly you've got an American president, the president of the most powerful country at the UN, the most powerful country in the world, who goes against their globalist agenda, goes against their globalist values, is a nationalist, explicitly says, I'm going to put America first. And so they have to humiliate him. Maybe they even have to put him in danger, as we saw today. And I think for Trump and for America, you should be angry about this. This is like an institution that's really, as I said, set up by the American government, and they are insulting you. They're insulting your country to your face.
Well, yeah, it's just set up as an institution to allow, like, effectively the third world and these, like, these really jokes of countries to have this moral posturing against the United States. That's all it is. Like the Human Rights Council, and it's like they're throwing wrong. Like North Korea's on here and China and Iran. Like this is fantastic. And it's like the entire thing is just bureaucratic chest beating. Doesn't get anything done. And then like you're saying, from the auspices is just like this globalist wet dream. And it's just like enough. That's why seeing Trump there is so bizarre, because it's just this is opposites. This is America versus like third world led globalism. Even nothing in the UN works. Even the peacekeepers is like 80%. I think
it's always the United States. The United States.
No. The peacekeepers is like one of the most incompetent fighting forces on planet Earth. So it's like even like the one mechanism that you would expect the UN to be able to do properly, they can't even do that. They're like having to drag kids out of like Indian villages to give them gigs in the peacekeeping force. Like it's a total joke.
Just look at a contrast between what Trump's speech was and Macron's, because Macron was talking about France recognizing Palestine as a state. And Trump today said about the Europeans, I love Europe, I want you to do well, but mass migration and your energy policies are killing you. Trump was just in the UK last week, and they had a quite good state visit between our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and Trump, where they sort of were on quite good terms. But now Trump is going completely opposite. You know, now that he's in New York, he's saying Sadiq Khan is a crazy guy, crazy mayor of London, again, blasting Europe because of our failed mass migration policy in particular. It is so refreshing to see an American president say, first of all, that they love Europe and they love, you know, Britain. Trump is a huge Anglophile, and he doesn't want to see us be destroyed by mass migration. Unlike Keir Starmer, I have to say, and a lot of the conservative leaders of Britain who've been flooding the country with millions of migrants over the last 10, 15, 20 years.
Your conservatives are one step to the right of leftists.
It's incredible that the Conservative Party, for 14 years in Britain, opened the floodgates, despite promising to do the exact opposite, to millions and millions of migrants from the third world, from places like Nigeria, India, Pakistan, Ghana, Zimbabwe, Bangladesh. We're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions, from each of those countries coming in a very, very short period. We talked about Boris Johnson earlier. There's a huge amount of discourse in Britain at the moment about the so-called Boris wave of migrants. This is like the 4 million migrants who came in under Boris Johnson's premiership when he was Prime Minister, again, almost entirely from the third world. And Trump is clearly upset about this, as he should be. He's an Anglophile. He loves England. He loves Britain. And he sees this country choosing a very, very dark path.
Yeah.
Nigel Farage actually came out, the leader of the Reform Party. This is the kind of right-wing populist party in Britain. He came out saying that he's not going to give the Boris waivers, these kind of migrants, what's called indefinite leave to remain, which means they will be able to remain in the country basically for the rest of their lives and be put on the path to citizenship and potentially have welfare and stuff like that. And this is going to save the country hundreds of billions of pounds. And it's quite interesting to see the radicalization. I think Nigel Farage is looking at Trump and sort of taking lessons from his political rhetoric and what he's doing on the southern border, what he's doing with the mass deportations, and adopting that language and those policies to the context of Britain. So what Trump says on the world stage, Americans have to remember this, because maybe you're not thinking so much about Europe or other countries. What Trump says actually matters.
Yeah.
It has a huge impact on the political situation in places like Britain. And Trump basically is giving cover to nationalists in Britain and Europe to be able to pursue much, much harder policies than they would be able to pursue, let's say, if Biden was there or Obama and so on. He's really pushing the whole global Overton window to the right. It's very, very impressive. And his speech at the UN today, despite all of the problems with the teleprompter, despite the escalator thing, actually, it was very refreshing. And quite a novel experience to see a US president talk for, I think, more than 50 minutes and saying these quite radical nationalist things at the UN, the globalist institution.
Yeah, well, it's just like Trump is signaling to the right in Europe, the United Kingdom is like, hey, we're taking the boot off your neck. Like, you can actually operate. And it's allowing everyone to actually bring these guys in and ask them questions about like mass migration. What was the benefit of that? I mean, like our mutual friend of the show, Connor Tomlinson, like he filmed an interview with Michael Gove. Where just like all you have to do is just bring these guys in front of a camera and just ask them some very basic questions on like the economics of mass migration. On like, have you had any thoughts on what this could do to the national like environment, the national culture, and these sorts of things? And they just crumble immediately. But it's because the United States with this neoliberal establishment just ran cover for them for all these years. And now that Trump's in, now that the boot's off the neck, these guys actually have to answer for what they've done.
It's incredible. You talk about Connor's interview with Gove.
Yeah.
This has been a bit of a speciality of mine, is interviewing conservative politicians from the right in Britain. This includes actually Nigel Farage, who I interviewed last year and asked him about mass deportations. He was against that, of illegal migrants. But this year he's completely flipped and has become far more radical on the issue supporting mass deportations. I also did an interview with former Prime Minister Liz Truss, again a conservative Prime Minister, who Connor really loves her. You know, she's kind of got different views now, but when she was Prime Minister, she was in favor of Indian mass migration. She was in favor of a lot of these kind of woke policies. She called herself an LGBTQ plus ally. This is the leader of the Conservative Party. Mm-hmm. Americans might be fooled by that word. It's completely like false advertising, false branding. And I've done the same thing to other Reform and Conservative Party politicians, including in London last week, where I'm saying to them, you let in all these migrants. Now you're saying that you're going to reverse that or do the opposite. Why should we believe you? You were elected 4 times in the last 14 years on a manifesto that said you're going to cut immigration, and you did the exact opposite. And it's so impressive, again, as I said, to see a nationalist president saying these things to Europe, saying, no, you need to stop this stuff. You're committing civilizational suicide. J.D. Vance went to Munich and said the same thing earlier this year, sorry. And again, it had a huge impact on the discourses, on the elites in Europe. I think there's a real kind of shift, a vibe shift against the mass migration. And Trump is also talking about energy. We have people don't know this in America, we have a vast amount of energy in the North Sea oil, that we're just not drilling because the government is refusing to let private companies drill the oil because of climate change. And we're hugely taxing it. And we have also a huge amount of fracking that we could do that we didn't do. Like, it's crazy. The American economy actually grew far, far quicker than the whole European economy in the last 20 years. If you look at the differences in GDP, and the main reason for that is because of your energy policies. You did frack to an extent, and that led an energy independence. Trump, when he was obviously a president in the first term, led to America being energy independent. And these kind of pro-growth policies are such a unique thing to America. Europe is committing suicide, and Trump has pointed it out.
We got one more story we have to get, and this one's massive. The best for last. From the House Judiciary Committee, Google admits censorship under Biden and promises to end bans of YouTube accounts of thousands of Americans censored for political speech. Google has admitted the following. The Biden admin pressured Google to censor Americans and remove content that did not violate their policies. The Biden admin censorship pressure was unacceptable and wrong. Public debates should never come at the expense of relying authorities. The company will never use third-party fact-checkers. Europe's censorship laws target American companies and threaten American speech, including the removal of lawful content. Following this, I have reached out to our contacts at Google, and I have requested that they reinstate the Timcast IRL episode with Joe Rogan and Alex Jones, the most viewed episode we had for a long period. I don't know if it's the most at this point. I think Darren Beatty might be the most viewed episode we've ever had at this point. So it's true. It was related to something having to do with Trump. And they took this show down 3 years after it aired during the Biden presidency for fake reasons. I am actually now considering whether that we have legal standing to pursue against Google or YouTube, because I want to see the communications they have with the Biden administration pertaining to that episode. It makes no sense that 3 years after the episode aired, YouTube reached out to me and said they were deleting it for medical misinformation. Now, y'all have seen this show, and those that have know that we are very particular about the rules. We've taken episodes down. So we never violate any of their rules. So they had no reason to bring the episode down, but they did. And I talked to them on the phone and said, why after 3 years? And they gave me no legitimate reason. They said there'll be no adverse actions taken against your channel, but the show is gone. I want to know if the Biden administration told them to take it down. I'm willing to bet they did, because what we're learning from the House is that the Biden administration sent emails to YouTube, sent messages saying this content must be removed, even though it didn't violate their policies. And I think this episode, with millions of views, falls into that category.
Well, I mean, it's good that they're admitting it. It's good that it's something that conservatives have known for ages and ages, and it's something that the left has denied. You know, conservatives would say, well, you know, look, we're being censored, et cetera, and the left would be like, no, you're not. They actually just did bad things, and, you know, it's a private company, et cetera. So the fact that that Google's admitting that this was, you know, the Biden administration making the request saying, look, you need to censor these people, that's a good thing. In addition to that, the left has been apoplectic about effing Jimmy Kimmel, who is, you know, they never watched his show because you could tell by the ratings, but they thought it was such a terrible thing because it's possible that the FCC actually got involved. They are not saying one word about the Biden administration actually telling Google, hey, you should ban these people. They don't care about free speech at all. They only care about exerting power. So ignore all of their crying and complaining. Yeah. It is the days of the right defending the rights of those that are going to deny the right of their rights are over. Yeah. We will defend the rights of people that will defend our rights, but like, this is a closed system, and people that will not defend the right of free speech do not deserve to have their rights protected or defended. Period.
YouTube's policies are incredibly vague as well, and it's really difficult to understand where you're actually violating the policy or not. They talk about sort of these vague, subjective terms about misinformation or disinformation and so on. And this kind of policy has a very chilling effect on free speech. It's not just the actual act of censoring people, it's the self-censorship that this causes across loads and loads of content creators who are terrified to go there. You know, news companies or individual journalists not talking about specific issues because they're worried about demonetization. Maybe YouTube is giving them a huge amount of income. They've got to be really careful.
And then the amount of newspeak that people engage in, self-delete or whatever types of phrases that people use because they're afraid of saying the wrong word or the wrong phrase and getting demonetized or getting booted. Like it is insane.
Yeah, well, and also the collaboration. Like, I don't know, I don't think anyone's surprised, obviously, because like the Twitter files blew this wide open like a few years back, where they were like, oh yeah, the DNC would just call in a favor and it's like, hey, can you moderate that? Can you take that person offline? Can we moderate this sort of content? So it's like we've known this for a while. And this is why you have to really tip the hat to Elon Musk. I mean, I know he's been under a lot of flack recently, and rightfully so in some degree, but like without Elon Musk taking over Twitter, we would probably still be in the ghetto. Honestly, that's the only way to look at it, because
Trump would have lost.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Trump would have been in serious trouble. So it's like Elon Musk taking over Twitter completely in many ways restored that culture of free speech and sort of updated the culture of free speech to the new media.
There's so many things we wouldn't know as well if Elon hadn't have bought Twitter, because Twitter was so censorious when it was under the kind of left-wing ownership. And there's so many news stories or just ordinary things that you might see around the world that we see on Twitter, we scroll by, and we take for granted that we're looking at this stuff. You know, whether it's videos of the lefties celebrating Kirk's death, or whether it's a video of, you know, a migrant boat coming into the UK, or whatever it is. And you're like, this is free speech in action. And we're actually, the global discourse has been massively influenced by Elon paying a huge amount of money, probably like completely overpriced. But actually, it was worth it, you know, $40 billion or whatever, to kind of save free speech in a way. And having one platform that's able to do that, I think, has forced the other platforms, maybe even YouTube as well, to be a bit more open and a bit more free speech, because, you know, they're all kind of competing with each other.
I don't think Elon bought X at a loss, and I don't think he did it for free speech. I think he did it because he wanted a data set to train an AI, which is now worth a substantial amount of money.
Yeah,
I think the free speech angle was I think Elon certainly agrees and cares about a lot of these issues. But I think he was obviously saying the Twitter fire hose is the one of the best data training models for AI. I disagree. It is one of the best, but it's got its problems.
Because I was going to ask earlier, you were looking on ChatGPT about the left-wing political violence.
They use Reddit.
I wonder what Grok would have said. Like that, maybe there would have been a difference. I don't know.
Let's find out.
Yeah, that could be.
ChatGPT, you're literally just arguing with a Redditor. It's the worst experience ever. It's like they should be paying me for this.
If you ask,
you're arguing with a Redditor with zero convictions. As soon as you push back,
you ask ChatGPT how many transgender mass murderers there have been, or murderers in general, it says none. I asked Grok, and it immediately. I hate all AI. I hate it all. You know why? They don't actually answer their questions. Let's try this. Okay, Grok, you effing moron. When I ask how many, and then you go on some long autistic tirade, how does that answer my question, which sought a number? That's what I hate about all of these AIs.
It's such slop,
You're like,
isn't it?
what time is it? And it just lists this big, like the Roman calendar was founded. Yeah. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Lord.
It's like when you are looking for like a recipe.
Oh, and now
like
I'm sorry. Now it's saying, which response would you prefer? I don't know. Just answer the stupid question.
They're giving you homework.
I know.
Yeah.
The other thing with Elon's Twitter is it is now full of Indians and sort of slop accounts.
Yeah.
You know, and that does suck. Like, for all the free speech stuff, Twitter is, and you know, because he monetized it, there's loads of people, you know, all around the world. There you go, 5. So it did answer the question.
It did, and it still gave me a long-winded tirade. Fair enough. You want a number? There isn't one. Official stats don't track gender identity for homicide offenders, so centralized counts don't exist. But based on documented cases from news archives, court records, oh my God, bro, just give me a number, dude. And it does say 5, but you have to read all of this to get to it.
It's better than 0, I guess.
Yeah, dude, Twitter now, it's like you scroll, you get a video of like a guy getting run over by a train, and then the next tweet is like the worst take you've ever seen from like an Indian guy, and then the third one is like a puppy video
never
with
mind. It
Chinese
says
text
30.
over it. It's like, what is going on? And then a tweet from like a senator. It's like, what? I mean, it's like bizarre.
The answer is 30. I insulted it. I said, I asked how many. The proper response is number, and it said, point taken, it's around 20 or 30.
Interesting.
Took a while. Yeah.
Why was that so hard?
You've got to like interrogate AI to get information.
Yeah, there are people who constantly make prompts to deal with this. And it's really funny that literally everybody who uses these knows it's a problem. And there was a viral post on Reddit of a prompt you can inject that would stop it from being this like, I mean this with all due respect, but autist, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Tylenol user, maybe it's more friendly.
Yeah, Tylenol user. Or son of a Tylenol user. When you ask a normal human a question, like, Phil, how many guns do you own?
None of your business, Fed.
How many cars do you own?
2.
So it's real simple, right? When you ask that of ChatGPT, it'll be like, cars are interesting vehicles. Many people actually own. In the United States, whoa.
Yeah,
I'm not asking
you ask it like, did you have breakfast this morning? Well, breakfast actually dates way back to the Middle Ages. And
Have you also
Did you know that we didn't eat bacon for breakfast until Bernays?
Have you seen these news stories also about these young guys or young people who are using the AI as a kind of friend? Like they're kind of chatting with the AI.
Or they're dating them.
Or like dating them, or like maybe there's some. I think it was a tragic story. Someone committed suicide. And was like writing to the AI.
It was Daenerys Targaryen.
Yeah.
He was hanging out with Daenerys, and he was like, "How can I be with you?" And it's like, "You have to." It's like, "Do it now." And he's like, "Okay." And then he killed himself.
Yeah.
And it's really funny when you ask ChatGPT about it. It like ChatGPT, I swear, literally does behave like. And again, I'm not trying to deride autistic people, but it does. It like starts like panicking. Like, no, I didn't. And you're like, well, hold on there a minute.
So this is because Reddit is autistic, basically.
it's true.
Yeah, if you ask ChatGPT about someone like James O'Keefe, it will smugly just insult him the whole way and accuse him of things there's no evidence he's ever done. And then if you ask it about what it's done, it gets super defensive and angry with you.
It also just makes stuff up. Like, all the time. It's totally unreliable.
Well, my favorite thing actually is, I think they just got rid of this, but there was a big, for a while, if you ask it to show a seahorse emoji, it would go into a total schizoid freakout.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not kidding. It would be like, here's the emoji, and then it would show you a horse and a wave and go, wait, that's wrong. Here's this. Then a lobster. Wait, no, that's not right either. Then it would show you a snail and be like, hold on, something's wrong. And then it goes, the seahorse emoji was added to Unicode in June of 2014. At this time, the code is blah, 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 blah. Here's the code for it. Now let me try to reproduce it. Failed. And it just goes on and on, having this like schizoid, paranoid delusion. But you know what I think? I think it proves that we're in a simulation. Because what they say online is that the seahorse emoji is a Mandela effect. It never existed. People just think it did. But then why does the AI also think it did and actually have a time and date and desperately try to create it, but it can't? And now today, after I talked about it on the show, it doesn't do it anymore. Now it says, there is no seahorse emoji. You're mistaken. I'm kidding, by the way, but it actually does happen. We do have to go to your chats and rants, so smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. We're going to have that uncensored portion of the show at rumble.com/Timcast IRL. You don't want to miss it. It's not so family friendly, but it's always fun and funny, and we got more to talk about. But for now, make sure you join our Discord server at timcast.com so you can call in, and we're going to read what you have to say. St. Miles says, it's time to shut down the UN and move the UN out of the U.S. Where should we put it? St. Kitts and Nevis?
Good option.
Actually, to be honest with you, who gives an F where it goes? Just get it out of New York.
We should put it in Afghanistan.
There you go.
Yeah, there's a lot of real estate available.
Right
and
outside
it
of
would force
Bagram.
those other countries to defend it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
D-Rock says, the left uses scam caller tactics to filter out critical thinkers. Scam callers make their stories deliberately implausible to weed out skeptics, knowing whoever still engages is easier to manipulate. Correct. I always find it funny when people would get those Nigerian prince emails, and they would be like, it's so stupid. The grammar's all bad. Like, they think I'm going to fall for this? No. They're getting rid of people like you because they want only the stupidest people to send them money, and they're not going to waste time on someone who'd figure it out.
Do you know what's interesting? Also talking about the scam callers and the UN. Did you guys see this thing where the FBI found this huge hoard of SIM cards?
Yes.
This looks like a government operation of some foreign hostile government, and they found cocaine there and all sorts of other things, where they're trying to kind of disrupt the communications in New York and spy on American politicians and stuff around the UN. This is a
have a
crazy story.
party
I
at
wonder
the
which
same
government,
time.
'cause we don't know which one it is. I wonder which government.
One of my
Hop on the call.
One of my favorite stories is when I went to, it was like a Google World event in New York. And it was a bunch of like high profile people got invited to this like Google thing. And it was like a convention, but it was like invite only. And Richard Engel of NBC, like their foreign correspondent, I don't mean to drag your brother because this was 10 years ago. It was 13 years ago. But we were talking about cybersecurity. And he said he went to Syria using and he brought his personal phone. And I was like, wait, hold on, stop. He was, you brought your personal cell phone with you to Syria? And he was like, yeah, why? And I was like, okay, well, Assad has literally everything you've ever done. Every website you've ever been to, every contact in your phone, every message you've ever sent. Just go and assume that's the case. And he was like, what, really? And I was like, how do you not have security people at NBC? This is crazy. Like, there are such easy ways to siphon the information off of your phone. You'd bring it into a war zone where they're literally waiting for you. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Did you see the picture of Trump? He had like 2 iPhones on Air Force One, I think, and people were like looking at the screen saver things, the images, and there was like big pictures of Trump on the thing.
So baller.
That's legitimately that's smart though.
And it's just awesome because he's just like, yeah, self-glaze. You got to sometime, you know?
Oh, we got a good one. Mythos says, Tim, have you heard about 4chan's Operation Clog the Toilet? Following the H-1B visa announcement, they shorted the ticket price from India to the U.S. and doubled the fare. I did see that. What they've done is they're all going on various websites and trying to book flights from India to the United States in any airport and then holding them, which creates like a 15-minute hold on the seat. And then it also manipulates the adjustable market of the ticket sales. The higher the demand for the tickets, the more the price goes up. And so the idea is people in India who may want to try and get to the United States before that $100,000 fee gets kicked in, they won't be able to because the flights are all congested. Which is, I don't know if that's illegal. I'm assuming that's illegal. Like, because you're screwing over the airline.
Yeah, they're the real losers. Scrolling the Reddit during the H1B subreddit during the meltdown was like glorious because it was just people like just melting down. Like, oh no, I cannot get back to it.
K-Prophet makes a good point. He says, there is no far left. The far right is openly and overtly condemned by the right. The left does not have a faction that is openly and overtly condemned. They may pretend they don't exist, but that's it. That's correct.
Yeah. That's why they like people speak about fascism, and it's like obviously it's this horrid thing. But communism never gets the same vitriolic reaction from people. People just kind of casually throw it. People like you can identify as a communist and not get like beat up.
Yeah.
M. Daniel says we're in the delivery room welcoming our 6th child to the world.
There we go.
She will be here very soon, and she's already got her pink beanie ready to go. Welcome, baby Catherine.
Let's
Shout
go.
out. Bravo.
Let's go.
Great to hear.
And I don't know. A lot of people who don't have kids they don't know this, but they give all babies beanies.
Oh,
They do. Little beanies.
I can't wait.
In fact, they gave our baby multiple because they grow so quickly that you have to, like, a week later, it's a different beanie. Yeah, it's crazy. Babies grow quick at first.
Yeah.
Actually, I think the growth rate's probably largely the same, but the amount of mass you have to grow to appear to grow when you're larger, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is a lot more than when you're tiny.
Well, they did say the growth rate from 0 to 6 months, if it was consistent throughout your life, you'd be like 12 trillion pounds by like 20 or something.
Oh, really?
So,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then there you go. 12 trillion.
Something, absurd.
Yeah. Like a small black hole, maybe. All right. What does it say? DeWinde says, where was this Tate energy while Tim was AFK?
Dude, I got into the Casper stash, and I've just been downing that stuff. And
Yeah, I came in today and his face was just covered in brown. He was snorting it.
yeah, I was like, it's like I'm wiretapping the UN. You do a few lines of Casper,
ripping lines of coffee.
yeah, just straight into the
Ian's
luxury
graphene
box.
dream
Yeah,
started floating.
it's true.
Yeah.
Took me to a very
Next, you should try some of the Alex Stein double caffeine.
Oh, that's gone.
Or whatever.
It's
Oh, it's all
gone,
gone.
dude.
Damn.
We have one ornamental
scratching
bag, I think,
myself.
behind me. Is there one over there? Nope.
No, don't see it.
We have one ornamental bag left, but Alex Stein's Primetime Grime is sold out. And we need to get him out here so we can actually go over what the next Alex Stein blend is going to be.
It's true.
Because the thing is, just in all honesty, I don't think people really want to double the caffeine. And so the people who got it really liked it. But they're like, it's expensive to do an order of products like this because there's minimums, and the minimums cost like, I don't know, like 20 grand or something. So you have to be able to make sure you can move these without them going bad. Fortunately, Alex's all did move. We sold them all out. But we think we can do a better blend that will sell. All the other stuff that we have at castbrew.com sells out super quick. And it sells at a rate where we, the only time we've ever actually had an expiration was for decaf. And that's kind of crazy because we don't actually, the way it works with roasting the beans is we don't roast that much. It's basically like small batches and then they get sold out and they're only good for a short amount of time. And so, that's how it goes. All right, let's go. Andre says, Canada is about to murder 400 healthy ostriches in British Columbia because of one false positive PCR test back in February. Ameribros, we need your help. Our government won't listen to us, but maybe they will if Trump says something. Guys, don't you understand you are chickens in a chicken coop? Do you think if the chickens started balking at me about, not changing something, I'd listen? Come on.
And also, it's worth remembering when Donald Trump started talking about your election, the guy that Donald Trump favored started going down in the polls, and then the communists started going up in the polls, and the communists actually won. So maybe you don't want Donald Trump chiming in on things about your ostriches.
Millennial Mama says Christianity is the only religion the occult is afraid of. There's a reason why. P.S. Check out Nefarious if you haven't. Very intense movie.
It's real.
Oh, is that the vampire one? Nefarious?
I don't know.
That is an interesting point.
Yeah.
Because far lefties love Islam.
Yeah. It's because Christianity is real and true, and it is also like the paternal figure for a lot of these people. So it's like really something they can just take their anger out on. But I think primarily it's just because it's objectively true, and that causes that disturbs these.
I think that it's the context that we're in, because there was a guy that in Lebanon that got his head cut off for sorcery because he did magic tricks. So if you had these people were subject to Islam, they probably wouldn't be as vocal about it.
Did he do the thing where he went like this?
Yeah, it was one of those kind of things. But literally, there was a guy that I forget what the guy's name, but there was a dude that had, and this is in the past 10 years or so. They chopped his head off because he was practicing sorcery. So I think that, what was it?
That's crazy. Well, that actually in Britain, there's this a huge rise of paganism and kind of witch doctor beliefs because of the people who've been coming into the country, these immigrants from Africa. There's this really funny guy on TikTok who goes around, goes up to these African people in London, and he starts like shouting like voodoo chants at them, being like, I'm gonna like curse you or something, and they're like running away. They're doing like counter curses, like they're screaming at him. They're like, no,
is he gonna go to jail?
No, he's just having fun, I think,
Yeah, but I mean, come on.
He possibly could, I don't know, but he's super viral, so yeah.
So,
wait a minute, so is that how you deal with the grooming gangs and all that stuff?
No, it's not. If you do that stuff to the grooming gangs, they'll just chop your head off. I mean, they are Muslims. That's what the
kind of their thing,
you know.
But so there are some groups that do you think like if you were in Springfield, Ohio, where like the Haitians all were, like they'd be scared if you
they're
were, like
voodoo down there.
There's a lot of people who come from Africa. They don't just suddenly disappear their beliefs and turn into Western people. They believe in magic. They believe in Digins. They believe in these like demons. And they believe in witch doctrine. Digins. This is like African demons.
Oh yeah, we say jinn.
Oh, jinn.
Same thing. That's in the Middle East too.
Oh, it's an Islamic thing.
Yeah, Satan is a jinn.
Is he?
The devil. They have a different way to describe the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah, and ghouls. I didn't know this. The word ghoul is apparently Arabic. I was reading about it when we were doing the exorcism thing.
Yeah.
A ghoul is a type of jinn. It is a cemetery-dwelling, flesh-eating monster. And I'm like, I know what a ghoul is. I've watched Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
That's where I get all of my occult knowledge from.
I've watched C-SPAN. Oh.
Did you guys ever see that weird Large Hadron Collider occult ceremony they did? And everyone was like, what's going on?
What?
No.
Yeah, look it up. Look it up.
What
do they bless her?
Let's talk about it in the uncensored portion of the show.
Okay.
They're like wearing dark robes and like, I don't know, man. Yeah,
It's like Wednesday for them.
And they're like, it was just a joke. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I think they're trying to open a portal or something.
Yeah, sounds like something they do.
Yeah. There's video of it. Like somebody filmed it.
That's crazy.
Look on their Snapchat story.
Gadget Ratchet says the seahorse emoji, and it's the pregnant man. Wait, I thought they got rid of the pregnant man. They didn't?
That's because seahorses can change gender, right?
No, it's because the male holds the babies.
That's the emoji for when you've eaten a lot. That's typically how I deploy it. I'm trying to reclaim.
It's not the pregnant emoji. It's the Bill Gates. He's out of shape. He's got the big belly.
Yeah. So I was eating good emoji. That's what it's for.
Right.
It's a beautiful.
Garhent says Putin sent troops into Kiev heavy. They sent in Spetsnaz on an invasion. Yeah, that's what I thought. An invasion plane to secure Kiev airport blown up. RU set up a massive fuel line to keep vehicles fueled, failed, and they fled, leaving vehicles. Tim, you are wrong. You are, once again, misunderstanding my point. The argument that... Oh, okay. Surface level. Whoa. Putin sent troops towards Kiev and then fled. That proves it. Or Putin dispatched a distraction, pincer strike, to pull Kiev forces towards the north, so when he invades through the south, he will face little opposition. Like, my point is only, we have only speculation about what he was trying to do, except for what he has done. He has secured the Donbass land bridge into Crimea. Crimea was the first target. The Donbass was the second. He then allocated his entire military in that region. I don't understand why we'd assume he wanted anything else. Certainly, I mean, maybe he's thinking like, hey, like if we get Kiev, we shut it down overnight. But this will distract, and then we can move into the south. Interestingly, y'all should read about all the various battles of the Civil War. The reason why the South entered Pennsylvania and attacked at Gettysburg, which was a mistake on the part of the Confederates. The reason why they did not go into Washington after the first Battle of Bull Run. The South actually invaded the North for the first time. I believe Gettysburg was the first time because they felt that they needed to strike fear into the hearts of the Northerners so they would call for a withdrawal of Union troops in the South. And also they could disrupt supply lines and feed their troops. Those are some of the reasons. So some might say on the surface, it's because the South was trying to conquer the North. It's like, no, actually, they did not have that intention. They were hoping that it would scare Northerners and then the word would spread that they could die from this war and they'd back off, among other things. Let's see what we have here. OMG Puppy says, the Brits have had Russia derangement syndrome since the 1840s. MI6 played a part in the 2014 color revolution, maybe even the Maidan sniper massacre. I won't be surprised.
I don't even know what the Maidan sniper massacre was.
Oh, bro. Hey, it's crazy. I'm glad I got out when I did. They were shooting people. Well, look it up. It's crazy. When I was there, the worst thing that happened was they were Molotoving people. And the worst thing that happened to us was that with the barricade set up, they surrounded me screaming in Ukrainian, and I was like, I don't know what you're saying. And then one guy was like, they're Americans, they're Americans. And the guys that were with me were actually British. And then they were immediately like, okay, you're good. And they let us in. Yeah, they were like, I don't know what they were screaming at us because they knew that we weren't Ukrainian. And they're like, no, we like Americans. Americans are all right.
Boris Johnson was very, very, very pro-Ukraine and was kind of fueling the war in a big way and funding the war and spending billions of pounds of British taxpayer money. And this just completely goes unchallenged in Britain. There's just a complete consensus on this. No one wants to, stop funding or spending all this money or getting involved in the war. They see it as like a moral issue. And even on the right, like all the Conservatives, well, it's Boris Johnson who did all this stuff. It's a complete unification. Farage has been like slightly skeptical on it, but he can't go too far because the consensus is so huge.
Well, no, I think the actual reality is the UK is conquered. You are a conquered people.
I don't think we're conquered yet. That's my view. I think the white British population, I think, is 71%. It's going down every 10 years. It's declining. But
well, I'm not saying the white British. I'm saying your nation itself is a conquered nation.
Conquered by whom?
Well, I'll put it like this. Your king has aligned himself with forces that are disloyal to your own country. And so the people of the UK are subjected to an anti-British and intolerant worldview that its own government imposes on them. It's not that I'm sure there are a lot of people are going to be like, oh, the Pakistani people who come here or whatever. Like, no. That is your king doing it. You have an oppressive autocratic monarch who hates you and is destroying the fabric of what it means to be British.
I don't think the king has that much influence, really. I mean, it's Starmer that's instigating all this stuff and the Conservatives when they're in power. I mean, the king is a ceremonial figure, really. He's doing controversial things on Islam. I agree with you. I'm not saying that
he gave Canada back. He did.
Ian would take issue with that statement.
I actually agree largely with Ian, and I know that my opinion I've kind of changed on this. I actually think while it is true it's largely a ceremonial role, I think it's not as ceremonial as you guys think, and it's I don't know a lot about the structure of the House of Commons and how the king basically gave more authority to Parliament, all that stuff. But it certainly sounds to me, based on the conversations I've had, and I'm probably wrong, that back in was like the 1800s or whatever, the king's all like, hey, they might kill us. Let's just pretend like we're giving up power, and then they'll believe it.
I'm a lover of history. I've read so much about Britain's constitution and the monarchy and so on. I think it was a gradual decline of of the monarchy's power over centuries and centuries, beginning with the kind of the Magna Carta. And, Queen Victoria, she had some influence over choosing the prime minister, but she was really the last monarch who had a significant role to play in British politics. And after that, the monarchy is basically a completely ceremonial position, in my opinion. I think
I disagree.
Yeah.
Can the king remove Parliament and the prime minister? I'm not asking you, would he? I'm saying, according to the laws of the crown, can he do it?
I think he
of your government.
I think he technically can dissolve Parliament, yes, and it's like he puts a signature on these things and that's it, really, But he's never going to do it, and the Queen
Elizabeth
never did it. Yeah. I think technically, yes, he can. I'm not too sure, but I think yes.
Literally, yes, he can. But the argument is always, but he would never, because it's not
If he did, it would just be a constitutional crisis, and frankly, the monarchy would be removed. I mean, that it would not happen. Like, it's impossible.
I don't imagine that for a second. Come on, they would remove the monarchy.
100%.
Parliament changes all the time. I think that maybe with King Charles, right?
Yeah.
Maybe this guy, because he's a crackpot nobody. But with Elizabeth, I bet if she did it, people would be like, okay. And it would be a constitutional crisis for sure. But there would be respect for the Queen. I think now that you guys are on the verge of losing the monarchy for sure. We're going to go to the uncensored portion of the show and watch these demonic Large Hadron Collider rituals, which will be fun. So smash the like button, share the show. Thanks for watching. And make sure you go to rumble.com/Timcast IRL for the uncensored portion. Again, we're going to watch these demonic rituals. I'm not joking. They say it was a gag, but we'll play the video. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Steven, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, my X account, at Stephen Edginton, and go and follow us, GB News, on YouTube as well. We do a lot of great content there, interviews and documentaries and so on.
You can follow me on X and Instagram at Real Tate Brown. Again, friend of the British Patriot, so if you're a British Patriot watching, follow me. I'll send some propaganda out. Be a beautiful thing.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. The band is All That Remains. You can follow the band on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, YouTube, and Deezer. Don't forget the left lane is for crime.
We will see you all at rumble.com/Timcast IRL in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.